those that don't know, the North American Hockey League, or the NAL, as the young men that I coach call it, is a Tier 2 junior league in the U.S. that's one level below the USHL. And I want to preface by saying that I'm not an expert on overtime and shootouts, as you'll find out through the next 13 or so minutes, but that extra time did define our season this past year. I think it's important to understand how our league is scheduled so you can kind of understand our story. Play a 60-game schedule, as you can see. We play 4 games out of our division. The other 56 are all within our division. And you can see there that that red line is the playoff line. We fell 1 point below it on the last day of the regular season. So we finished our 60 games 5 points ahead of the Northeast Generals. They had 3 games in hand. They had a 3-3 against the number 1 team in the division. They won all 3 games. They won their 3rd game, of course, in overtime to jump that final point and jump us into the playoffs. If we look over on that right-hand side, you can see our regulation win percent, right? So just looking at games that went through 60 minutes, right? We were in the top 3 in our division, so our playoff fate would have been different if games didn't go past 60 minutes, right? We do a 5-minute 3-on-3 format for overtime, just like the NHL, and then we go to a 3-shooter shootout, just like the NHL. Right? Just to show you how good of a team we were in regulation, Lone Star Brahmas led our league in fewest regulation losses. You would have to scroll all the way up to 27 to find the next team that didn't make the playoffs. Right? Those 4 teams on the left with the yellow arrows were the final 4 teams competing for the 2022 Robertson Cup. And I want to give a quick shout out to our East Division rival, the New Jersey Titans, because they won the 2022 Robertson Cup. And we can see on the right-hand side that while we were difficult to beat in 60 minutes, we weren't very difficult to beat once that clock put 5 minutes on the board. So then I looked at, well, is anybody really going to care about this? Like, how true is our story, right? And so 1 in 4 of our games went to overtime. Looking at our league data and looking at kind of the NHL as a control, we can see that number's more like 1 in 5 games if you play, a decent number of games in your schedule. And when I found that number 1 in 5, I was actually reading the book Gridiron Genius by Michael Lombardi, and I'm sure some of you have probably read it before. And in it talks about how 20% of all football plays are special teams plays. And that while, quote, most coaches are happy just to get on and off the field with a clean exchange, there's this guy, Bill Belichick, and he's not, right? Belichick is, quote, not willing to forego the chance to gain an advantage over an opponent on 1/5 of the available opportunities. Made me think, as coaches, are we spending enough time focusing on an area of the game where we can get 2 points in the standings, right, 1/5 of the time? Especially when you're playing a league like us where you're playing the same teams fighting for those same points over and over and over again. Right? The other thing I looked at was just how effective is the power play in overtime, right? How much is that playing a factor? How much time should we be spending there? Our number's deceiving because we only scored 2 goals in overtime, right? So one of those is on the power play. But it seems like power play affects overtime about 10% of the time, right? That's not power play success rate. That's a number I didn't calculate. I work in the NAHL, right? So I am our analytics department. I have a calculator. That's how I find these numbers for our league and our team. So I didn't have access to finding success rates for, vast amount of games in leagues that I don't work in. So I didn't find that data. I'd love to know it because I think it would be interesting. But in general, the power play is not going to play much of a factor, and that's likely due to just penalties not being called. Right, so this is our final record in extra time. Not so great. I'm going to focus on, because I got 11 minutes left, on overtime exclusively, because we had 16 opportunities there to have success. Right, and where I started was just talking to other coaches about their approach, right? How do they prepare their team? How do they practice? What strategies and tactics are they using, right? We're all watching the NHL. We all want to do the regroup and reset and do all the same kind of tactics. And when I had those conversations with coaches in our division, coaches in college, coaches in pro, right, there wasn't a ton of difference in the way that we approached it, right, from a practice perspective and from a strategical perspective. So next, I went to our mentality. Right? And you can see in games we gave up a lead, right? We lost momentum, right? We couldn't find a way to have success in overtime, right? Not surprising. I think we all probably would have thought that anyway. That 1 shootout win came in our final shootout of the season, right? Games where we were able to gain momentum in the third. Those first 2 wins were our first 2 times that we tied the game in the third. After that, when the other losses piled up, right? We lost that belief and confidence in ourselves. And even though we gained momentum through the third period, it didn't matter in overtime. It didn't matter in the shootout. And I can tell you that I'll definitely be leaning on the notes that I took during Kara Mori's talk on resilience to hopefully change our mentality next year when we do give up a lead, because obviously it's an area that we need to improve upon. Another area that I'd love to have more information, more stats on, but again, 4-letter league, not a 3-letter league, didn't have the resources to find those numbers. Right? Then I went to our in-game execution, right? So what's actually happening in the moment? And when it came to puck possession, face-offs, right, turnovers, so puck management, there wasn't a ton of separation between us and our opponents, right? We had the puck as much as they did. We gave it away as much as they did. So what are we doing with the time that we have it that's so different from them that they have an edge over us, right? And the first place I looked was just puck movement. This graph is borrowed from an Athletic article in 2021 by Don Lazuskin. I'm definitely saying that name wrong, and so I apologize to him if he ever should see this, which he probably won't. But and he found that the more complete passes you make in a possession at the NHL level, the more likely you are to generate a dangerous shot. Seems pretty obvious, right? Right? I looked at us. Not a ton of difference between us and our opponents in number of passes. Right? We're in blue, opponents are in red. Same thing with pass and completion. Not a ton of difference. Right? So if we're moving the puck as much as our opponents and we're completing as many passes as our opponents, how valuable are the passes that we're making? Right? And what I found in watching video was that our puck decisions and movement were towards less threatening areas of the ice, and it forced our teammates to attack into their coverage almost every time. And I'll show you an example of that here. We have an opportunity to attack good ice, as we heard Paul McFarland talk about yesterday. Right? We stay in the perimeter, we exchange on the perimeter, and now we're attacking through coverage. Right? We'll have another opportunity to cut underneath the defender, to create a 2-on-1, to maybe make space for the puck to go into good ice. Instead, we stay on the outside. We exchange on the outside. The D keep eyes on the puck and the players. They stay in good coverage. We're going to exchange it 2 more times, and we're going to get pretty much nothing out of it. Right? And you'll see here at the end that we get a shot opportunity, right? Gets blocked, don't even get a shot on net. So in over 20 seconds of possession, we get those 4, right? That magic number, 4 complete passes. We've gained nothing, right? We didn't gain a dangerous chance. We didn't even get a shot on net. Second thing I found was shots. In regulation, again, we outshot and outscored our opponents through every period in the regular season through 60 games. Different story in overtime, right? We attempted less shots, not surprising, but we also attempted less shots than that kind of NHL baseline I have there at the bottom, and gave up way more than the NHL baseline. Same thing for actual shots on net. It's like, well, maybe we're attempting less, but we're getting pucks through. We weren't. And if any picture is indicative of how our record is going to go in overtime, it's probably this one right here. Right? We weren't finding the dangerous area of the ice enough, again, because of that poor puck movement and attacking outside the dots as opposed to trying to move the puck through the middle of the ice. Right? And obviously, we allowed our opponents to get into that really valuable area. Back to that Athletic article, right? We can see here that at the NHL level, winning teams in blue, not surprisingly, outshoot their opponents in dangerous areas. What was really interesting in both the NHL and at our level, when the numbers that I found, was that just in general, outshooting your opponent is indicative of success. Right? It doesn't matter where it's from. Volume is going to get you a win most of the time, right? If you're a numbers person like me. And so we can't pass up an opportunity to shoot. If we combine those 2 concepts in that clip here, right, we have an odd man opportunity. We move the puck once. We have an opportunity to move it through the middle of the ice. Right, move it early, get another complete pass. We don't, no shot on net. Right, now they're going to transition the other way. They make 1 and 2 quick passes here. Right, they move it early while it's available. And now they're going to have a very similar looking opportunity to the one we just had. Right, but they're going to get inside and they're going to get a really dangerous shot on net. Right, so they've built momentum for their team, and we have not, because we couldn't complete that pass early, and we didn't take a shot from it when we were in a dangerous area. Right? This clip leads me to my last point. Right? It's often said in overtime that you have to give up a good chance to get one. And it's not true if you want to win. At the NHL level, right, again, they share possession of the puck with their opponents, but they're finding ways to get more counterattacks and more odd man rushes than their opponents. Right? They're not just going to run and gun the whole time. Right? They're going to defend well, and then they're going to strike when they can. And this was probably the area that we struggled with the most in regulation, was we were not a rush team. We were a place and play. We were a forecheck team, right? And so that made our puck decisions in overtime much more challenging because we weren't comfortable making those plays and making those decisions. Right? How do we get more of these? Right? At the NHL level, a little more data than I can find. Right? You're going to get them on failed passes, on shot attempts, on turnovers. Right, last little look from the NHL here, right? Not all odd man rushes are going to be created equal, not surprisingly, right? You want to be able to get a breakaway, a 2-on-1, a 2-on-0, right? Those are ways that you're going to score more goals. So kind of like Paul talked about yesterday as well, if you look over on that right side, if we can get our defenseman up in the rush and feeling comfortable, or your third player, right? Maybe it's not a defenseman, maybe you play 3 forwards, right? But getting them comfortable jumping up in the rush, you're going to have more likelihood for success in overtime, right? Don't worry about what's going to happen afterwards. Take control of the chance that you get. Right, this clip kind of combines all 3 concepts here. Right, we start with good D-zone coverage. We're going to get a stop, and we're going to have good intention here to jump up the ice and create a 2-on-1. Right, failed pass, missed opportunity. We make a complete pass here, nice shake and bake by our defender. He has an opportunity again to attack good ice or to have a player come through. He stays on the perimeter. We're attacking through coverage yet again. Right, another puck movement to the outside. We've made 1 complete pass. The goaltender's been set on our puck carrier this whole time. We're in a dangerous area of the ice. No shot on net. Right? Again, 20-plus seconds of possession. Right? We had 2 opportunities for odd man rushes that we didn't take advantage of. Right? We had opportunities to maybe move the puck to the middle of the ice that we didn't do. And now we're not even getting a shot when we have the puck in probably the most dangerous area of the ice possible, right? Right at the hash marks. Right, so what are we going to do differently? Right, 1, you got to pass the puck into and attack good ice, just like you want to do in regulation. Right, not surprising. We heard it yesterday from Paul. Right, second thing is we just got to have a killer instinct. Right, know that any shot in overtime has some value. If you got a clean lane to the net, take it. Don't overthink it. That shot could be what changes the game. The third thing that we got to do is we got to recognize when our opponents fail a pass or a shot or turn the puck over that we need to counterattack. Right, we need to be comfortable getting up the ice quickly and creating those odd man rushes and not allowing them to get into good defensive posture. Right, 2 drills just to take home with you and that we're going to do next year to make us a little more comfortable with these things. Number 1 is it's a puck retrieval, so the coach is going to spot a puck to the red team. Right, 1 red's going to retrieve, 2 other red are going to come back and support that player. Right, we're hoping that player snaps the puck up quick, they transition, and they're going to get an odd man rush. Right, maybe a 2-on-1, maybe a 3-on-1 if that retrieval player can jump up the ice. Right? Where it gets interesting is when that D touches that puck for us, we're going to release 2 blue-black checkers from the bench. Right? For you, depending on your level, maybe it's when that offensive rush crosses the blue line. Right? I don't know how fast your players move the puck or how fast they can move the puck, so you might have to play with that so that you can still generate an odd man chance to start this drill. Right? After that rush opportunity, right? If it's a shot, if it's a failed pass, whatever, now we're going to have a puck retrieval, and that's where we're going to encourage that puck retrieval mindset. And so if blue gets the puck, the defending team, they're going to be allowed to counterattack and hopefully create an odd man rush of their own, right? So we're remedying that kind of mindset that we've had where we don't want to jump right away. We want to possess the puck and see what we have and then try to attack. We're not going to do that. We're going to attack. We're going to go right away when we get the puck. If red retrieves the puck, we'll allow that to play out 3-on-3 in zone for the next 5-10 seconds, whatever you want. Right, so now we're encouraging offensively that puck movement, that desire to attack, right, that decisiveness with the puck. And defensively, we're forcing our defenders and our goaltender to make a big stop. Right, they have to make that stop, and now we can transition and we can go attack the other way. Right, and we're also adding a nice reward for puck recovery, no matter what side of the puck you're on. Last one's just a small game, right? So it's 3-on-3. The only real rule is that the red line is offside. So for those O's that are defending, they're working on that man-on-man coverage. Right, for the X's, they're working on trying to attack and create those odd man rushes. Right, but we're going to add in some rules to incentivize what we want to do. And again, for us, it's counterattack. So if you score off of a counterattack, we're going to count that goal for 2 points. So again, you're being a little bit more decisive on your counterattack back. You get 1 point for a goal if you set up in zone and then attack. Right? Another change that we're going to make is that when the X's reset, so if they pull out of the offensive zone and they regroup and reattack like we see all the time, right, and we want players to do in overtime, one of the O's must change. Right? They all can change if they're gassed or they want to, but one of them has to. So now those X's that are reattacking need to find where is that breakdown, where can we move the puck to create that odd man opportunity. Right? We know like our players love small area games, so it's a great way to work on a lot of these concepts in a competitive environment, keeping score, and getting them to execute in the moment. There's a lot more to this topic that I wanted to get into, but 15 minutes goes by really quick. I got 30 seconds. So that's kind of where I ended up finding my focus. But if you're curious about it, that's my email. We can chat more. I looked at like deployment of players and things like that, and just didn't have the time for all of it. So I just want to thank Aaron, Ben, and the coaches site for the opportunity to present today. Thank you, guys.